Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. 9 suave fragrances for sophisticated men. And this video is dedicated to my core viewers, the people that watch the videos, that are subscribed. I have found that over time, if I do a video that talks about classy fragrances or gentlemanly fragrances, anything in that realm, I get double the views. And that is an indication of who the person that chooses to watch my videos are. You aspire to be or are sophisticated, classy, that kind of thing. This says a lot about you. It's also really reflected in the comments. Amazing how supportive people have been in general. And I felt that my channel is doing really well. I'm on target to reach my goals for the year. And this wasn't a scheduled video, but I thought you guys like this, so why not repay the favor? And thanks for all your support. Fragrance number 1, this is Tom Ford's Ombre leather. And when I went looking through my entire collection for something that defined suave, this one to me won hands down. This is both masculine and classy, because this is not a dirty leather. It's a very clean, high-class, quality leather fragrance, but it's also masculine. There's a masculine component to it as well. There's a masculine component to any really heavy leather fragrance, and that's what you're getting here. Super high-quality fragrance, great performance, definitely a fair amount of amber in this. I don't know. Whenever I think of suave, leather is one of the things I think of, and definitely in terms of fragrances, this is one. Fragrance number 2. Now, when it comes to Christian Dior, I always think of, suave and sophisticated as well. But what wasn't suave and sophisticated was their transition away from iris-based fragrances into woody-based fragrances. So the move into Dior Homme 2020 took everybody by surprise. And Dior Homme 2020 is one of the nicest things I've ever tried. But the transition was not smooth. It wasn't well done. This fragrance, this is West Loop by Michael Malul and Gents. To me, this is something really that I think that they should have considered, and it would have been a much smoother transition. So what this is a floral fragrance that's not iris. The Dior Homme line used iris, which is kind of a neutral scent. These are 2 floral notes, almond blossom and vanilla orchid, that are sweet florals. So then you take the sweetness of those florals, you add a little bit of tonka, and then you're moving the classiness, the powderiness of a floral fragrance, modernizing it by making it sweeter. To me, it was a masterstroke, and not surprisingly, it was done by somebody who has a finger on the pulse of the fragrance community. That's Ash from Gents. As soon as I figured out what he was doing, I'm like, oh my God, it was brilliant. I thought it was a really cool idea. I also like partnering up with Michael Malul because it's a niche house, so you know you're going to get high quality, but it's not a super expensive niche house, so its price range is right in the middle. He did so many things right with this fragrance. And also, he added a lot of cinnamon, so you're not going to get that cloying sweetness. There's enough spiciness balanced with the sweetness of the tonka and the 2 sweet floral notes. Suave, and this one is probably going to appeal to more of a younger audience because of the sweetness, but there's enough classiness that it can appeal to a lot of older gentlemen as well. I think this is, I don't know, I love it. Fragrance number 3, this is Dolce Gabbana, the One Gentleman. And in a way, this kind of did exactly the opposite of what West Loop is doing. So West Loop is taking a sophisticated DNA, florals, and they're modernizing it by adding sweetness. This, the Dolce Gabbana One line, was already sweet. The original one was tobacco, so spicy tobacco, and vanilla. So they already had this. But this, they added lavender to turn a modern fragrance more classy. And I think lavender is a very underappreciated note now. There's no question in my mind that lavender was overused in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Just about everything was barbershoppy. But these days, I don't think it's used enough. I think it's a beautiful note. It's a classy note. It's a masculine note. It's associated with men anyway. And yeah, the addition of lavender here was fantastic. So you've got the original vanilla, and instead of tobacco, they used a lot of black pepper, and some cardamom. So it's very fresh and spicy that way. And then the additional lavender. The problem with this fragrance and with the Dolce Gabbana fragrances are, for the money, the performance isn't always great. Now, the performance for this one is a lot better than the one Eau de Toilette, but the projection could still use a little bit more. You get your half an hour of reasonable projection. You get your 4 hours, but this is a pricier fragrance, so you would expect a little bit better performance than that. But hey, that's Dolce Gabbana, and this really is a nice fragrance anyway. Fragrance number 4 is Hugo Boss Bottled Oud Saffron. And this, to me, is a suave, sophisticated oud fragrance. When I think of oud, I tend to think more exotic. But what they did here, they took the standard oud triangle of oud, rose, and saffron, and they ramped up the saffron to give it a fresher feel. And so it makes it a little bit more accessible. There is a hint of the original Boss Bottled apple DNA in this. Just a hint, though. Boss Bottled Oud, there's way too much of it. They didn't know whether they wanted to make an oud fragrance or something that was related to Boss Bottled. This one is just a hint, and then you've got some labdanum sweetness. And so, yeah, it's just a fresh oud fragrance. What I love about this, though, is the projection. I wore this the other day, 5 sprays around the neck, and my God, for the next hour and a half, I didn't have to sniff anything. I could smell it on me. The projection of this is very, very good. The longevity is great, too. This is higher quality, like $15 more in general than Boss Bottled Oud. And I think it is also more suave and more sophisticated, less exotic, more sophisticated. And, of course, Dior Intense. I mean, I really had to put this on the list. This is a fantastic, classic modern fragrance. It's very, very suave too. You've got the beautiful combination of iris and EMB Bret. And everybody always talks about this being an iris fragrance. That's the first note they mention. What they don't mention is where the lipstick element comes from. EMB Bret is a mildly sweet, creamy feeling fragrance. So it's got a creamy feel, and that creaminess creates the lipsticky vibe. There's a lot of EMB Bret in this, and I think EMB Bret does not get enough play in the fragrance community. I would use it way more. I think it's a fantastic note, and it's one of the core things behind this fragrance that really made it successful. And I think it's also easier to make something like EMB Bret, which has some sweetness to it, project really well. And this one really does project and last really well. A hugely overlooked fragrance for number 6. This is Tiziana Terenzi's Orion. And really what this is a parfum version of a woody Aventus. So Aventus, the core of it anyway, is a smoky birch combined with a fruity pineapple. And you determine, is this a fruity batch? Is this a woody batch? This is more on the woody side. They've added some cedar to back up the birch. On the other side, you've got a little bit of apple and bergamot to back up the pineapple. So this is more on the woody side of things, but this is also a parfum. So this is a thick, long-lasting, fresh fragrance. You don't get quite as much projection as you do with Aventus and Aventus-style fragrances because it's a parfum. It's a very thick juice, really, because there's so much of it. There's so much fragrance oil. But my God, it's fantastic, and it really surprises me that this one didn't do better. But I don't think Tiziana Terenzi, first of all, the name is feminine, so that's going to put off a few guys, but also it's not a super high-profile niche house. And I think if this style of fragrance, maybe let's say Creed created an Aventus parfum, I mean, blow everyone's socks off, but it's already here. Fragrance number 7, this is Rochas Moustache, and I wanted to have an inexpensive but sophisticated and suave fragrance on this list, and this, to me, is my number 1 in that area. Now, this is considered to be a clone of YSL Tuxedo, except whenever you're doing a clone, you look at the notes and the accords, and you never see them be exactly alike, So this borrows an awful lot from Tuxedo, but it's not the same fragrance. The patchouli in this has been brought way down, and you can see it in the listing of the accords. Patchouli is a hugely important note with Tuxedo. You don't get as much of it here. This is a little spicier. There's a lot of pink pepper in this, and this also has or the vanilla ramped up just a wee bit. But if you're looking for patchouli, if that's your thing, you're probably better off the original. But my God, this is certainly a wonderful, wonderful fragrance on its own. And yeah, I mean, it's plenty close enough to be considered a clone, but it's just not exactly the same. Another fragrance very much in the same vein, this is Shiaka by Khadlaj. And this is a clone, kind of Reflection Man by Amouage. Now, in order to give the differences between the two, I'm going to go over the main notes that are available for Reflection Man. So you start with 2 white florals, neroli and jasmine. So that has kind of a little bit of a creamy component. And then you get a lot of rosemary. That's kind of minty fresh. There's a lot of freshness in it. And then there are 2 powdery notes. You've got orris root or iris and sandalwood. So it's a powdery white floral with rosemary. The difference between Reflection Man and this is there is less rosemary in this. This is less fresh than Reflection Man. So sure, it's a clone. Sure, it smells very similar, but this is creamier. You're definitely not going to get the same level of freshness. It's very easy to tell if you put them on side by side. Reflection Man is a lot fresher, and but you know, it's still really good. It's still very similar. You're going to get, you know, once it's settled down, this one is quite inexpensive. So spray, wait a week, and after that, you'll probably get 6 hours at least. 6 to 8 is what I'm giving this one. Really good projection too. This is a hell of a clone, and it's very, very popular. It's a tough one to find. I had to put myself on a waiting list to get it, but it's really worth it because I love Reflection Man. And finally, we have Creed's Green Irish Tweed. And if you're going for suave and sophisticated, especially if you want something for summer or spring, for, you know, fresh fragrance, you can't beat this. I mean, this is fantastic. It's a lot of violet leaf and lemon verbena. This is such an iconic fragrance that not only was it copied so many times in the fragrance community with things like Cool Water, but most people's fabric softener smells like this now too. I mean, that's how impactful it was on the culture. But yeah, this one is fantastic. And when it comes to Cool Water, I've always said, oh, it's kind of similar, but it's almost exactly the same on paper. But that's not how we wear it. We don't wear it on paper. On skin, you can really notice the difference. It's not hard to tell. This one really pops off the skin more, and you can get iris in this, and you can't in Cool Water. Cool Water has great performance, but this is like beast mode for a fresh fragrance performance, at least the bottle that I have. Anyway, yeah. Thanks very much, guys. Channel's doing really well, and I know you guys like sophisticated fragrances, so I gave you a few. Thanks for watching.